Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Roach Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, basketball season is in full swing, and there's an important Big Ten battle between bubble teams, with the Wisconsin Badgers traveling on the road at the Ohio State Buckeyes. Who do I think is going to win this basketball game? Let's break it down. Now, the Wisconsin Badgers are 12-8 and 4-6 in the Big Ten this season, and Greg Gard, he's in his 8th season as the Wisconsin Badgers head coach, and his record is 156 and 86, and his conference record is 88-56 in the Big Ten. He's done a really good job of succeeding Bo Ryan. Maybe he hasn't had Wisconsin at the heights that Bo Ryan had the Badgers at, but Greg Gard has done a good job to continue to have Wisconsin as one of the top Big Ten programs. But this season they are struggling in basketball, and they're on the wrong side of the bubble right now, and this will be a very important road win to get the Badgers back on the right side of the bubble. And they've had some key matchups this year that have influenced their season so far. They lost to Kansas in overtime on a neutral site, 69-68. That was a really tough loss. If Wisconsin had been able to get that win, that would have really helped out their tournament resume. But then they were able to get a big win, 80-77 at Marquette in overtime. That was a great win over Shaka Smart's Golden Eagles team. Marquette's one of the best Big East teams this year, and that win has definitely aged well for their tournament resume. Wisconsin also won at Iowa in overtime, 78-75. That was a really solid win as well. But then they had a tough stretch of games, losing at Illinois 79-69, and they also lost at Indiana 63-45 in one of their worst performances of the season. And they've lost a lot of other games in the Big Ten in a row as well. They were able to get a win over Penn State 63-60, and that is the only win for the Wisconsin Badgers in the month of January besides a win over Minnesota. And they're going to have to start getting some wins in the Big Ten down the stretch of the season if the Badgers want to make the tournament. The other thing that's really hurting their tournament resume as well is they're 74th in the net, which I think is a little low considering that Wisconsin does have some good wins this season and not a lot of bad losses. But the net takes a lot of other things into account as well. But Wisconsin has some good players. Their leading scorer this season, Tyler Wall, he's averaging 12.6 points per game, 5.9 rebounds per game, and 1.9 assists per game. He's a really solid forward. He can knock down some threes. He did miss 3 games this year with an injury, and that's really hurt Wisconsin this year, and a big reason why they've been losing so much the past few games is because Tyler Wall missed those 3 games. And now that he's back, they're trying to get back in sync. Steven Crowell is averaging 12.3 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game, and 2.7 assists per game. He's Wisconsin's center, and he's a really good player as well. He shoots threes at a decent percentage, and he's definitely been an improved player for the Badgers. Chucky Hepburn is Wisconsin's point guard, and he's been averaging 12.3 points per game, 3.2 rebounds per game, and 3.2 assists per game. That rounds out Wisconsin's trio of players from last year that have all been really solid, and they've definitely improved this year, but they haven't really improved to the level that Wisconsin has needed to get a lot of big wins, especially considering last year they had Johnny Davis and Brad Davison who put up more points per game. Connor Seaton has been a surprise freshman for the Wisconsin Badgers. He's averaging 10.5 points per game and 3.2 rebounds per game. He's a really good shooter, and he's a tough player for a freshman, and he's been really solid for Wisconsin. And Max Klesman's averaging 7.1 points per game, 2.6 rebounds per game, and 1.5 assists per game. He's been a really solid player as well, and he's been playing better as of late. But Wisconsin doesn't really have the go-to scorer. They don't have that guy that they can lean on to get buckets at the end of games, and that's been really tough for them this season. And Wisconsin's averaging 65.1 points per game, and they're only allowing 63.3 points per game on the defensive side of the ball. And Wisconsin's offense has struggled this season. They've always been a team that doesn't really put up as many points as other teams around the country, but this year they're really struggling to get points, and their defense has been solid, but there's so many teams in the Big Ten that are capable of putting up points this year that it's really hurt Wisconsin, especially when Tyler Wall went down, to be able to put up enough points and get enough stops to win games. Now on the Ohio State side, they're 11-10 and 3-7 in the Big Ten this season. And Chris Holtmann, he's in his 6th season as the Ohio State head coach, and his record is 118-66, and his conference record is 61-47. And he's done a really good job to replace Thad Matta as the Ohio State head coach, kind of similar to Bo Ryan and Greg Gard. He has continued to keep Ohio State as one of the better Big Ten teams, but like Wisconsin, they're also struggling this year. And Ohio State's on the wrong side of the tournament bubble as well. They're even further behind than Wisconsin, but to get a win over Wisconsin in this game would probably help the Buckeyes get closer and closer to being back on the right side of the bubble. And some key games for the Buckeyes this year that have impacted their tournament resume as well. They lost to San Diego State 88-77. San Diego State is one of the best teams in the Mountain West, and Ohio State just could not get that win on a neutral site. Then they beat Texas Tech on a neutral site 80-73. That was a really good win for Ohio State, even though Texas Tech is one of the bottom teams in the Big 12. Texas Tech Tech's still a really solid team, and that win's still going to help out the Buckeyes come March. Then Ohio State lost at Duke 81-72. That was a really tough loss. Duke is not as good this year as they've been in years past, but Duke's still a really solid team, and that was a game that Ohio State let slip away. But the biggest loss for Ohio State this year was losing 89-84 to North Carolina in overtime. That was a game that Ohio State had all but wrapped up, but they allowed North Carolina to come back, tie the game, and it went to overtime, and then North Carolina ended up winning. And ever since then, Ohio State has been struggling, and they have not won many games since that loss to the Tar Heels, and that was a really tough loss for the Buckeyes. Then they beat Northwestern on the road 73-57, and that was a good win for Ohio State. They really needed that win, especially considering that Northwestern's been a better team this year, and that is helping Ohio State's tournament resume a bit. And they also won against Iowa 93-77 as well. Those two wins in Big Ten play are the only thing keeping Ohio State near the bubble, but they also suffered a lot of other bad losses to Minnesota and Nebraska as well. So Ohio State's going to have to start winning some games in the Big Ten if they want to get back in the tournament field. And you look at some key players for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Bryce Sensabaugh, the freshman guard, is averaging 17.6 points per game and 5.5 rebounds per game. He's been a big surprise for them this year. Ohio State had a really good recruiting class coming in this past season, but Bryce Sensabaugh was not the highest rated player of the group that they brought in, but he's definitely been the best freshman that they've had. He could even be a one and done, but he is carrying the Ohio State offense this season through all the struggles that they've had. And Justice Suing's averaging 12.6 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, and 2 assists per game. He's a forward who transferred in from California. He's been playing pretty well for Ohio State this year, but he hasn't been playing at the level that Chris Holtmann wants him to. He's had some injury issues throughout his career as well. He missed all of last season for the Buckeyes, but he's been pretty solid this season, but they're going to need more out of him if they want to make the tournament. And Zed Key is averaging 11.9 points per game and 7.6 rebounds per game. He's the only player for Ohio State that was on the team last year that made significant contributions, but he's having a pretty solid season as well. But he's had a lot of injuries this year, and he's probably not playing at the level that he could be playing if he was healthy, and he's going up against all the bigs in the Big Ten every single game, and it's wearing down on him, but he has had a solid season. Guard Sean McNeil, a transfer from West Virginia, is averaging 9.8 points per game, 2.1 rebounds per game, and 1.3 assists per game. He's a really solid guard, and he's a really good three-point shooter, but Ohio State needs more production from Sean McNeil if they're going to start winning some more Big Ten games. And freshman guard Bruce Thornton's averaging 8.5 points per game, 2.8 rebounds per game, and 2.8 assists per game. He's the other freshman from this past class that's playing pretty solid basketball this year. He's not playing at the level that Bryce Sensabaugh is playing at, but he's had a really solid first season of college basketball. And you look at Ohio State's points per game, they're averaging 76.6 points per game, and on the defensive side of the ball, they're giving up 67.7 points per game. Ohio State was scoring a lot of points in the non-conference, so that number is a bit inflated. Since they've entered Big Ten play, they haven't been averaging as many points, and on the defensive side of the ball, it's been the same. In Big Ten play, they're not defending as well as they were in non-conference play, but Ohio State still has a team capable of playing really good defense and capable of putting up a lot of points, but they need to be more consistent in the Big Ten if they're going to start winning some more games. So who do I think is going to win this important bubble game in the Big Ten? Wisconsin needs this game just as much as Ohio State does because of the fact both teams are on the wrong side of the bubble right now. I think that Greg Gard has a team that is still capable of playing really good defense, mucking a game up where it's very low scoring. Possessions are getting late in the shot clock and keeping the opponent below 60 points. And that's the kind of game that Wisconsin needs to have if they're going to win this game. Tyler Wall is getting healthier, and I think their team overall knows that they need this win if they're going to make the tournament. Their net ranking is really low at 74, so they need wins like this to boost that up to help them make the tournament. But with Ohio State, their net is extremely high at 29, but their record at 11-10 is not good enough to make the tournament at this time. Chris Holtmann's team knows that, and they have a lot of talent. If you're going off of talent, Ohio State should easily win this game because Wisconsin has a lot of solid players that know how to play fundamental basketball, but Ohio State has players that could go to the draft, especially Bryce Sensabaugh. He has been fantastic this year, and I don't think there's a player on the Wisconsin Badgers team that can stop him one-on-one. Bryce Sensabaugh can get in the lane and get to the hoop. He can shoot threes. He gets fouled. He's a very tough player to stop, and he's going to be the best player on the floor for both teams in this game. And Ohio State has other players that are really solid as well, but it's about getting consistent production from Justice Suing and Zed Key and Sean McNeil and others for Ohio State to complement Bryce Sensabaugh to help him win this game. And Ohio State's going to want to get out and running and make this a higher scoring game so Wisconsin won't be able to keep up, and I think Ohio State is capable of that, but I think Wisconsin's style of play is going to win out in the end. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game. Both teams are really struggling right now. I think both teams are going to play really hard on the defensive end and make this a low scoring game. I think Wisconsin will be able to succeed in making this a low scoring game, a type of game that they like to play in, But with Bryce Sensabaugh being the most talented player on the floor, I think that Ohio State's going to beat Wisconsin 55-54. I think this game could go either way. Both teams need this game. Wisconsin is a capable team, and they have won some games on the road this year. And Greg Gard is a great coach. He's been at Wisconsin for 8 years, and he has teams built to win games like this. And I think that Tyler Wall's going to have a really good game. He's starting to play better basketball off of his injury. And I think that Chucky Hepburn and Steven Crowell will have solid games as well. But even though I think Wisconsin will succeed in making this a lower scoring game, I think that Ohio State's talent and the fact that they know that they need this win, and it's at Ohio State, and that's really going to help them out. The home crowd for Ohio State will be able to impact this game to a degree, but I think that Ohio State with Bryce Sensabaugh might be just a little bit too much for Wisconsin, and I think that Ohio State's going to beat Wisconsin 55-54 in this important Big Ten bubble game. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Ohio State or Wisconsin is going to win this basketball game and why, and I will see you next time.